حميم فشرب الهيم هذا نزلهم يوم الدين نحن خلقناكم فلولا تصدقون أفرأيتم ما تمنون أأنتم تخلقونه أم نحن الخالقون نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت وما نحن بمسبوقين على أن نبدل أمثالكم وننشئكم فيما لا تعلمون ولقد علمتم النشأة الأولى فلولا تذكرون أفرأيتم ما تحرثون أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون لو نشاء لجعلناه حطاما فظلتم تفكهون إنا لمغرمون بل نحن محرومون أفرأيتم الماء الذي تشربون أأنتم أنزلتموه من المزن أم نحن المنزلون لو نشاء جعلناه أجاجا فلولا تشكرون أفرأيتم النار التي تورون أأنتم أنشأتم شجرتها أم نحن المنشئون نحن جعلناها تذكرة ومتاعا للمقوين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم فلا أقسم بمواقع النجوم وإنه لقسم لو تعلمون عظيم إنه لقرآن كريم في كتاب مكنون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون تنزيل من رب العالمين أفبهذا الحديث أنتم مدهنون وتجعلون رزقكم أنكم تكذبون فلولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون فلولا إن كنتم غير مدينين ترجعونها إن كنتم صادقين فأما إن كان من المقربين فروح وريحان وجنة نعيم وأما إن كان من أصحاب اليمين فسلام لك من أصحاب اليمين وأما إن كان من المكذبين الضالين فنزل من حميم وتصلية جحيم إن هذا لهو حق اليقين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم صدق الله العظيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. So the last mas'ala that we were dealing with was with regards to the traveler. When is a traveler allowed to not fast? When is a traveler allowed to break his fast? When we said this, the ulama, they mentioned four things, right? In order for it to be permissible for a traveler to not fast, the ulama say number one, his travel should be long. And we said how many kilometers do the ulama mention? 81 kilometers, right? ومرحلتين. So if a person is traveling and his traveling is more than 81 kilometers, then this is the first condition met, right? The second condition is that the travel must be permissible or mubah, right? So if someone is traveling, uh, even if it is a far distance, even if it's more than 81 kilometers, right? But he's traveling for haram. He's traveling to to go gamble or to go drink, right? The ulama would say, no, this person needs to fast because his travel is not mubah, it is haram, right? So it must be long, more than 81 kilometers, and it needs to be permissible. Another condition is that the person needs to have left the boundaries of his city before the waqt of Fajr. Right? Before the waqt of Fajr. Right? So if someone leaves after Fajr, if you have a uh, you're going to leave with a plane, right? Asr time or Dhuhr time, right? You're still in the boundaries of Cape Town, right? At Asr time or Dhuhr time, then you would still need to fast that day. You understand? Like a family member of mine left now to Indonesia in the week. And he asked me, do I need to fast that day that I'm traveling? So I asked, when are you leaving? He said he's leaving after Asr. So then I told him, that day, the day that you're leaving, you need to fast. Why? Because he's still in the boundaries of Cape Town after Fajr. After Fajr. You understand? So he had to fast for that day. Now, so it needs to be a long travel, more than 81 kilometers. It needs to be a mubah travel, must be permissible. You need to have left the boundaries of your cities uh, before Fajr, before Fajr. Naam. And the place that you intend to go, you mustn't have the intention of making iqama in that place or becoming a resident in that place for more than 4 days. Alright? For 4 days or more. Alright? So if you intending to go to Joburg, for instance, alright, and you intending to stay there for an entire week, right? As soon as you get to Joburg, right, you need to start fasting. You're not a traveler anymore, right? But if you go into Joburg and you're intending only to stay in Joburg for 2 days, then the 2 days that you are in Joburg, you don't need to fast because you are a musafir. Because you are a musafir, you are less than 4 days in that place. You understand? So those are the four conditions that would allow you to not need to fast, right? As a traveler. Number one, it must be a long travel, 81 kilometers and more, right? And above. Number two, it needs to be a permissible travel or a mubah travel, right? Number three, you need to have left the boundaries of your city before Fajr. And number four, you need to, the place that you intending to be at, you mustn't intend to be a resident there or to remain in one place there for 4 days or more. You understand? If all of these four conditions are met, then you the ulama give you the allowance to not fast as a musafir, as a traveler. Right? There's a beautiful masala I was reading. Uh, you get people that are constantly traveling, right? They constantly traveling. I forget the Habib's name, but when Rahman was mentioning that there was one Habib that was always traveling in da'wah, right? He was always moving from one place to the next place to the next place, calling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And such that you Ramadan never became compulsory upon him. Right? Fasting never became compulsory upon him. Jumu'ah never became compulsory on him. Why? Because he was constantly traveling, calling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now the ulama asked, right? Uh, for somebody like this, is this person allowed to not break it, to not fast? هل يجوز الفطر له, right? So imagine this scenario now, this individual, he's constantly traveling, he's constant, such that he never is in one place long enough for fasting to become compulsory upon him. Right? He's traveling always. So now what's this gonna lead to? He's never going to fast. Now the ulama ask, in his case, this is a rare case, a special case. Do we give a different ruling to him? Because now we want him to fast. We want him to fast the month of Ramadan. So do we say no, no? Yes, you're a traveler, and the general rule is that you don't need to fast if you're a traveler. But now, do we give you a special rule because you always traveling? And if we're going to give this rule, that if we're going to apply the general rule upon you, then you're never going to fast. You're never going to need to make qada or fast for the month of Ramadan. Right? So again, we mentioned Imam Ramli. We mentioned this name a few classes ago. Imam Ramli. We spoke about the mubihat tayammum. We spoke about things that would allow you to take tayammum. Things like if you if you're fasting and you fear that your fasting is going to extend the duration of your sickness, or it's going to increase the severity of your sickness, right? And we mentioned that according to Ibn Hajar, another great scholar in the Shafi'i madhab, right? Ibn Hajar says that you have to break your fast. You can't fast on that day. Right? If you fear that your fasting is going to increase the severity of your sickness, or it's going to increase the duration of your sickness. That was the opinion of Imam Ibn Hajar. And we mentioned before that when we speak about the Shafi'i madhab, we're not just speaking about Imam Shafi'i. Right? The madhab of Imam Shafi'i wasn't built by Imam Shafi'i alone. It's centuries and centuries of scholars that add to this madhab and to create this madhab that we know today, the madhab of Imam Shafi'i. People like Imam al-Nawawi, right? People like Imam Ibn Hajar, Al-Ramli, all Imam Al-Khatib, all of these individuals are men that carry weight in the madhab of Imam Shafi'i. If we hear their names and they have an opinion, then we follow them. We call it the mu'tamad or the relied upon opinion in the madhab. Whatever Imam Ibn Hajar says or Imam Ramli says, it's called the mu'tamad. That is the relied upon opinion in the madhab. So in that masala, we already mentioned our communities, mashallah, were introduced to those two scholars a few days ago, Imam al-Ramli and Imam Ibn Hajar, right? In that masala of mubihat tayammum, right? We said if someone is fearing that his sickness is going to increase, or the duration of it is going to increase, or the severity is going to increase, Ibn Hajar says what? That you mustn't fast. You mustn't fast. It's not permissible. It's wajib for you to break your fast. Right? And Ar-Ramli, he says what? That it's permissible for you to fast and it's permissible for you to not fast. Alright? Again, here now, there's ikhtilaf. For somebody that's constantly traveling, right? Imam Ar-Ramli says this person, even though he's a musafir, even though he's a traveler, it's not permissible for him to break his fast. He must fast. Why? Because he's constantly traveling. He's constantly traveling. So now Imam Ramli says because of this, is a new ruling given to him. Right? Generally, the musafir, the traveler, doesn't need to fast. But because this man is always on travel, Imam Ramli says, no, you need to fast. Even though you are musafir, you need to fast. And then other ulama, other fuqaha in the madhab of Imam Shafi'i says no. He's like any other musafir. He's allowed to break his fast. Even if he's constantly on travel, it's fine. A lot of there's a good handful of ulama and fuqaha in the madhab of Imam Shafi'i that says it's fine. You can break your fast. You don't need to fast. Right? So you must remember that, inshallah. Like I was mentioning yesterday, our teacher Said Ahmad, when he reads a new masala in fiqh, it's as if he's eating chocolate. Right? He starts to shiver and he gets a smile on the face. Right? So we must also become like that. When we learn something new in our deen, right? We must become excited and we must feel joy and we must feel felicity and we must be elated, right? When we learn something new in in Deen, right? So I'm just gonna check. The, okay, the chairman is fine, but there's a lot of young boys here. So I want to see if they're listening or if they're sleeping, inshallah. No, Muzammil's face went immediately down now. Don't look at me, Sheikh. Yeah, what did I say about the person now that is constantly on travel? Some of the fuqaha say that he can break his fast like normal, like a normal musafir, he doesn't need to fast. Right? And other ulama, like Imam Ramli says, that he has to fast. He has to fast. Even if he's a musafir, he has to fast. Why? Because he's not a normal musafir. He's mudiman ala safar. He's always traveling. Right? And Allah knows best. Right? Another masala that we eventually going to do, I was reading about it today, is the 6 days of Shawwal. Right? Can you break, can you pay, can you fast the 6 days of Shawwal and make qada at the same time? Right? The ladies always ask this question. Because our ladies, they have the hayd. So now they ask, Sheikh, I can't fast the 6 days of Shawwal and I must pay back my days that I missed in Ramadan. What must I do? Inshallah, we'll do that eventually. Inshallah, to be continued. Right? So the next question, inshallah, is the next question is now a person wants to travel on the ta'ira on the plane, the Asr time. Right? Asr time. Does he need to fast that day? We already answered this question. Right? The person wants to travel on the plane Asr time, right? Or Dhuhr time, any time after Fajr. Does he need to fast that day? Right? Ulama say yajibu ala man nawa safar ba'd al-fajr ay yusbiha sa'iman. Somebody that is leaving the city, is bound the boundaries of the city, right? After Fajr, right? He must fast. He must fast. It's compulsory for him to fast, right? But then look at the fuqaha, mashallah. Look at the deen. The deen is easy. So the ulama say, لكن إن لحقته بعد سفري مشقة غير محتملة جاز له الفطر. Right? If you traveling now, but the travel is really difficult. Right? The travel is very difficult on you. Right? Then the ulama say in this case, then you can break your fast. It's very difficult for us to kind of make tasweer of this masala. Travel isn't so difficult for us anymore. In the Prophet ﷺ's time, before the invention and the advent of planes and aircon and all these different things, travel was very difficult. They used to walk in the deserts, in the hot deserts, right? So you can kind of understand where this masala is applying in that scenario. Where travel can actually be very, very difficult. You walk in the sun, it's hot, right? So there the ulama say, right? Even if you left the boundaries of your city after Fajr, right? You need to fast that day, but if you find that the fasting is too difficult upon you, then they give you the allowance to break your fast. Allahu A'lam if we can have that scenario today with our aircons and our aeroplane. Everything is easy. You're just sitting in the aeroplane. You're not walking. There's nothing happening, right? Or if you're in your car, right? You're just driving. You're just sitting. You're stationary, right? So, but it still applies. If you find that the travel is extremely difficult, such that you're fearing for your health if you continue with your fasting, then the ulama will say, "La bas," you can break your fast. But you must remember, you need to start that day fasting. You need to start that day fasting. Thereafter, when you start in your travel now and you find that it's too difficult for you, the ulama say, in that case, you can break your fast. You can break your fast. نعم. Question number 23. لو أصبح المريض أو المسافر صائمين ثم أراد الفطر هل يجوز لهما ذلك؟ Okay. Now the question is the sick person, right? Or the traveler, he begins his day fasting, right? He already sick. He's got some sickness. وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ. May Allah grant you health, inshallah. Right? But just an example. Right? And you decide that you're going to have perseverance and you're going to fast. You're going to try your best to fast. Right? Now you've begun your day fasting. Right? So now the ulama say, for this sick person, again, if he starts his day fasting, but now during the day he finds that the fasting is unbearable. The fasting is too difficult for him. Right? Are you allowed to break your fast now? The ulama say yes. You are allowed to break your fast. Right? And what does he need to do after Ramadan? Does he need to give fidya? Does he need to just make qada? He just needs to give qada. He just needs to pay back that day after Ramadan. You understand? نعم. وهكذا. So this is a recurring theme, right? The ulama are saying that if things get too difficult, if the fasting is too difficult upon you, then what must you do? They give you the allowance to break your fast. Right? Whether it's difficult because you're on travel, whether it's difficult because you are sick, right? It doesn't matter. As soon as you are going through such discomfort and difficulty because of your fast, right? The ulama will give you the allowance to break your fast. You understand? Now, here's an interesting question. The question is now, if you are on the khabaw, or if you are working, you are a working class individual, right? You're working in very difficult work, very tedious work, right? Are you allowed to not fast for that day? Because you are in the sun whole day, you're busy on the building. Or if you, the example I gave to the children was if you are a professional athlete, if you are a soccer player or a rugby player, is that a valid excuse for you not to fast that day? Is that a valid excuse for you not to fast that day? The ulama say you need to fast that day. You need to fast that day. You are working on the khabaw, you working in construction, you working in difficult jobs, right? That require you maybe to eat something, just to to keep your concentration. The ulama say no, you need to fast that day. You need to fast that day. But then they speak again and they say, but if it comes to that point where it's too difficult anymore, you can't, if you're going to continue fasting, it's going to put your life at jeopardy. It's going to put the life of the people around you in jeopardy, right? فإن وصل بعد ذلك إلى حد يشق معه الصوم أفطر. Right? If you're going to continue fasting, it's going to put your life at jeopardy. The ulama say, break your fast and make qada after Ramadan. Make qada after Ramadan. Right? Deen is it's practical, it's easy. Things are. This is the legislation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? There's only hikmah and wisdom in the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? The next question is for our young ones now. Right? The question comes always, Sheikh, I have exams. I have exams. Can I not fast that day because of exams? Because of tests and exams? Like all the young guys here are smiling and laughing here. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Right? So, question, the answer is لا يبيح الإفطار ولا الفطر. You can't break your fast because you have an exam. Right? Example they always give is that the battle of Badr was fought in Ramadan. And they fast. They fasted. The Sahaba fasted. They fought in a war, in a battle, whilst fasting. We're just going to write paper two of math. Right? We write in English or whatever we write in, right? Right? We write in Nahu or Sarf, right? That's not a valid excuse to break your fast. So if you write in examinations and your tests, that isn't a valid excuse to break your fast. And the other Sheikh says actually, وَالْمُسْلِمُ يَسْتَعِينُ بِطَاعَةِ اللَّهِ عَلَى مَهَامِ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Right? That a Muslim actually, he seeks assistance in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his worldly affairs and in his affairs of the akhirah. Alright? So you must actually believe that if you fasting, alright, Allah is going to actually open up for you more in your exam. Alright? Allah is going to open up for you more in your tests. Alright? And not feel that food is the thing that sustains you and that's going to give you that concentration. No, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that will give you that um, that concentration and tawfiq, right? وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا billah. Right? There's no tawfiq, there's no success except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Next question is ihtilam. What is ihtilam? Ihtilam is a wet dream. Right? A wet dream. Does having a wet dream during Ramadan, during the day of Ramadan, does it break your fast? Right? The ulama say no. Right? To have a wet dream during your fast, right, doesn't break your doesn't break your fast. Right? But you need to take a ghusl. You need to go wash so that no salahs are missed by you. Right? You can't make salah if you are in the state of hadath akbar, right? In a major state of impurity, right? What's the major state of impurity when you need to take a ghusl? Naam. Right? So if you're in a state of major impurity, right, you need to take a ghusl. And if you have ihtilam, right, or if you have a wet dream, you need to uh, you need to take a ghusl. Right? But will it break your fast? No, it doesn't break your fast. Right? No. So you must think every time we have this class, or any dhikr in the masjid, think about, I always say this, how much effort the ulama and our grandfathers and our grandmothers went through, right, for us to have Islam today. Right? One thing that we take for granted is our janazas. Right? We take for granted the ability for us to have our Islamic, our Muslim janazas. Right? In Assalamu alaikum. In when did Sheikh Yusuf pass away? Who can remember? We mentioned 60? 16? I don't think I actually mentioned it. 1699, Sheikh Yusuf Al Makassari passed away. When did he come to South Africa? 1690? 94. Ahsantum ya Radi. MashaAllah. 1694, Sheikh Yusuf came to Cape Town. Right? He was sent far away from the capital, from Cape Town. From Cape Town, he was sent to Zandvliet, right, which is in the Makassar area. Right? And the intention was by isolating Sheikh, he wouldn't have any influence over the people around him. We mentioned the whole uh, yani, all the different places he had to go to. Right? He said he was first in Batavia. Batavia now is Jakarta, right? In the capital of Indonesia. Right? Then he went to Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka. Then he came here to South Africa. Right? So look at all the difficulty that they went through. Subhanallah. Right? Ulama went through a lot of difficulties. So We must appreciate the deen that we have here in the Cape Town. Right? In Cape Town. Now, one thing that we were speaking about now, to have a janaza as a Muslim is something we just think as something normal, something that is just like a right of ours, right? But it wasn't always a right, right? It wasn't always a right, right? In 1713, right, there was an outbreak in Cape Town of smallpox, right? There was an outbreak of smallpox, and lots of Muslims died. Obviously, they were all slaves at that time, right? Lots of Muslim people they passed away in this outbreak, the outbreak of smallpox. It was an epidemic, right? And they petitioned and they wanted to, uh, be buried according to Islam, according to the regulations of Islam, right, and the laws of Islam. And they were denied this. Right? And they weren't given a ghusl the way we are given a ghusl, like the ghusl of the mayyit. They weren't given a ghusl, and they weren't even buried in the kafan that we have today, right? They were buried in coffins. Subhanallah, right? Next time you go to Constantia Maqbara or Maubre Maqbara, right, and you look at your loved ones that have passed away, and you look at how they were buried, think about this this incident in 1713 where there was an outbreak of smallpox, and many of our ancestors were the first Muslims that lived here in South Africa, in Cape Town. They weren't given that opportunity to to be buried the way our loved ones are buried, and that inshallah we will be buried when we pass away and return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So think about all these things. I always mention, whenever I see ulama that graduated from Newcastle or Azadville, they're very proud to, and it's in their right, mashallah, the ulama, and they're very, very proud of the ulama that they came from. Right? Mullah Ali Kauda finished him. He completed his studies in Newcastle Madrasa. And our Imam as well, Mullah Ridwan Peri, right? He also completed his studies in Newcastle. Sheikh Ismail Lant also studied there for a while. Right? And they're proud of it. Right? They're very proud of being from the fraternity of the Newcastle Ulum. Right? And the man that founded Newcastle was a very pious man, Mullah Qasim Sima. Right? But they would not have been Islam in the rest of South Africa, right? Had it not been for that small community that Sheikh Yusuf al-Makassari began in, in 1694. Right? That was the first community, Islamic community, Muslim community here in South Africa. We spoke about Abu Bakr Effendi, right? Abu Bakr Effendi, he had 6 children, right? Of the two, the historians speak about 2 children. What were their names? Ata'ullah, Ni'matullah. They respectively go to where? Port Elizabeth, and they go to Kimberley, right? And they also revive Deen there. They start creating a community of Islam in those areas. Right? We must feel proud of the Deen that we have here. Right? When we hear names like Imam al-Ramli, Imam Ibn Hajar, we should feel fortunate and we should feel so proud and so happy that we are getting introduced to these names, and that we're getting to know these ulama. Right? Right? In the past, people had to travel all the way to Saudi, they had to go, they had to go to Yemen, they had to go to Turkey to be introduced to these names. Right? Yeah, Buddhas can just sit like Alhamdulillah. And the ilm comes to us, the knowledge comes to us. We don't need to travel anymore for the ilm. But what our teachers always tell us, yes, we don't need to travel maybe anymore to go and get that ilm. But our test now is that we need to appreciate the ilm. We need to appreciate the knowledge. We need to appreciate the people that teach us. We need to appreciate our imams, right? Because they spent years, right, The things that I'm teaching, or I'm not teaching, but I'm reading to you now, today, Mullah Safwan and Mullah Piri and all our ulama to travel to get this knowledge. Yeah, we just need to take a 2-minute drive, 3-minute drive to the masjid. And then Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala gives us all of these things. Right? We must make shukr. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, He says that if we are grateful for the ni'mah that we get, right? Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will increase us. Right? So we want Allah Ta'ala to constantly increase us and make us a community that is connected to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, connected to the Quran, connected to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We make dua that our majalis and our masjid becomes even more full and more full. Every day I say that all the putas and the brothers must bring 10 people. I'm still waiting, inshallah. Abdulaziz. But we must feel, and we must have that fikr and that raghbah, that deen and the propagation of deen is my responsibility. Right? Right? And when we take personal responsibility of inviting people to the masjid and bringing people to deen and khair, there and only then and only then will we see that our deen will flourish in our community, inshallah. So go next time you go to the maqbara, next time you see in one of your loved ones being hustled in the way that our deen teaches us, just think about 17, 13, right? 17, 13. And think about all those Muslims that weren't given that opportunity to be buried the way we get to be buried, right? And be grateful. And say, Shukr ya Allah. And make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a good ending, inshallah. An ending that is beautiful, an ending with our loved ones, an ending where we are shut, we are buried, and we are washed the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught His Nabi and the way His Nabi taught the Sahaba, inshallah. Inshallah, tomorrow we will continue from question 29, inshallah. Bismillah.
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله. خير البرية نظر إلي، خير البرية نظر إلي، ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية، ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية. يا بحر فضل وتجعدل، يا بحر فضل وتجعدل، يدلي بوضع يحيى قبل المني، يدلي بوصف يا طه قبل المني. خير البرية نظر إلي، خير البرية نظر إلي، ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية، ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية. حاشاك تغفل عنا وتبخل، حاشاك تغفل عنا وتبخل، يا خير مرسل يا طه ارحم شجيا، يا خير مرسل يا طه ارحم شجيا. خير البرية نظر إلي خير البرية نظر إلي ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية كم ذا أنادي يا خير هادي كم ذا أنادي يا خير هادي قصدي مرادي يا طه عطفا علي قصدي مرادي يا طه عطفا علي خير البرية نظر إلي خير البرية نظر إلي ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية أهديك حبي صلاة ربي أهديك حبي صلاة ربي ما دام قلبي يا طه ذكري حيا ما دام قلبي يا طه بذكري حيا خير البرية نظر إلي خير البرية نظر إلي ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية ما أنت إلا يا طه كنز العطية ربنا انفعنا بما علمتنا ربي علمنا الذي ينفعنا ربي فقهنا وفقه أهلنا وقرابة لنا في ديننا مع أهل الكتر أنثى وذكر ربنا واصلح لنا كل الشؤون وأقر بالرضا منك العيون واقض عنا ربنا كل الديون قبل أن تأتينا رسل المنون واغفر استر أنت أكرم من ستر وصلاة الله تغشى المصطفى من إلى الحق